Anything you want to talk about is cool.
Yeah. Well, I started talking about this office. This was great. Every time I come in this door, there is this sense that this was a living space. Somebody's living space. It's now being occupied by the English department at University of Colorado, Denver. I love this place. I love the quad. It's the one part of the campus that is historic. It feels historic. It's grassy. It feels much more like a classical university than the rest of the campus, which is really an urban campus. Functional architecture, a lot of concrete. And this part of the campus is grassy, and it feels like the right place for an English department. And I love to be here, and I love the view from my office window, and I love to talk to students out in the quad. All that kind of coincides with my idea of what an English professor is and should be. And then there's the history, which is strange. It makes the place feel less familiar.
Well, like it belongs to somebody else, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the whole origin of the English department at the University of Colorado, Denver, is flawed, right? At least it's morally problematic in some way.
Right.
And what I was talking to you about before is there's a sense of ghostliness here, right? That there's all these people who used to be here who are just totally unacknowledged. You can go around and look at the plaques and things that are the people and the communities who are acknowledged on 9th Street Park are not the people who lived here between 1925 and 1977.
Right.
Yeah, you did such a great job of making a livable space.
Yeah.
Now get the hell out of here.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're out of here.
Right. That was their reward. That's a great city. They spent so much time creating a community, this wonderful space, right? And then they're dispossessed of their property, and as you were saying, the community itself is scattered about.
Yeah.
And then the next generation comes in and is given free tuition and is dispossessed of its language, right?
Right.
So there's a kind of a double dispossession going on. I think speaks to the role that the American University has played in creating a monolingual society, the monolingual society that we live in. And I am sympathetic to the part of Crystal's argument that says to apply it to the situation in 9th Street Park.
Right.
Of course, the American University should be teaching English language skills to native Spanish speakers who are living in the United States of America, right?
Right.
And of course, we should be, giving access to English language to people who are living in other countries who want that access for economic reasons. I'm not arguing against that at all. But I think it's also important to have language requirements for students who are part of our university system, so that we're not teaching English exclusively, right? So that we're also encouraging and requiring the study of foreign languages. That's certainly part of the rhetoric of the university, but it really isn't part of the action. To some extent, I think American University hasn't walked the walk as far as the foreign languages and linguistic diversity and multiculturalism go.
The language programs were not showing a profit.
Yeah, and I think I think that's a somewhat of a one way to understand the closing of foreign language departments that happened after 2009 when the recession hit. That's what I'm. Concretely, that's what I'm interested in.
Exactly.
All these foreign language departments were closed. Administrators made the decision, and they justified it through, by economic means.
Economic
saying
means,
that there weren't enough student credit hours to support these.
Right. Exactly.
To support these departments.
Yeah.
But when the interesting thing is, even if you buy into that model of not necessarily university as a profit-making enterprise, right? But at least university as a consumer-driven enterprise, right? Where serving the consumer, and the consumer who can pay full tuition becomes the be-all and end-all, right? Because state funding is being cut off, right?
Exactly.
So you need to attract those high-paying students. How do you attract those high-paying students? Well, you certainly don't want to place any extra linguistic burdens on them. Right? That would cut into our competitiveness in the student market, certainly. But the crazy thing is when you actually look at the numbers, the recent numbers, like between say 9/11, when there was a certain anxiety, national anxiety about our monolingualism, failure to be able to communicate with people from foreign countries who didn't speak English. Right? Between 9/11 and 2009, when those language departments were cut, the numbers, the student credit hours in language departments actually went up, especially in languages like Arabic, right, where there was all this increasing demand. But my sense is because there is an assumption in American education more generally that begins with the Department of Education and goes all the way down to the universities and the K through 12 system, right? That this is we live in a monolingual world. English is really the only necessary language. We don't need to put the resources and the time into the study of foreign languages. Those foreign language departments are the first to go, right? Those administrators look at the numbers, and they look at a whole bunch of departments side by side, and it's just easy for them to cut those foreign language departments because we don't place value on the study of foreign languages. What's the quickest way, the best, most efficient way to push students into high-paying corporate jobs? It's not to force them to learn languages because that takes too much time, too much money. But again, I would sort of flip that argument on its head and say there are an awful lot of corporations who are interested in the bottom line and in dollars who desperately want people with linguistic skills, right? So it's a decision that's being made that feels like an irrational decision, even from a capitalist standpoint, right? Even from a profit-making standpoint, feels irrational. And that's part of what I wanted to call attention to with all of this is, I mean, it makes sense on so many different levels to address or to redress what Russell Berman in that article calls Americans second language illiteracy.
Right.
They have no second language. And it seems like a big failing of the American university.
You know, that's one thing Crystal does in his book is it makes a pretty good case if we are going to have a global language.
Right.
Why not make it English?
Yeah, and I think again the issue part of the issue that complicates what we're trying to do with this documentary and placing value on the learning of foreign languages is the issue of access, right? I mean, that non-English speakers want access to English. This is coming, from them. Well, they want to be included in the global economy.
Right.
English is a hugely important currency. I mean, it basically ensures that they can participate, and I'm completely sympathetic to that. But that shouldn't mean erasing entirely their communication in their native language, nor should it obviate the importance of Americans, native English speakers, learning foreign languages, right? In order to have value placed on foreign languages, you have to have leadership. You have to have people in the Department of Education saying this is important, right? This is important for the kind of nation that we want to be. And it has to, and then you have to have administrators saying that also. So it is, to a certain extent, anti-populist, right? It's not. If by democracy you mean that consumers should have the last say in what gets taught and studied at a university, then I plead guilty to the charge of being anti-democratic, right? I mean, I am arguing for an expert, top-down type decision-making where people who are in power with expertise are able to identify certain areas of knowledge that deserve more importance given the fact that we want to be a certain kind of nation in a global world, right? A multilingual nation, a nation where our citizens are able to communicate with people with non-English speakers, which they're not, right?
Well, who calls the shots, who gets to say what gets done and what doesn't get done? It's once again back to this kind of administrative role, and the administrator is not particularly interested in being a scholar or an academic. He's interested in making sure the books balance according to someone's view of what balancing the books means.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately the most healthy process for making these kinds of curricular decisions is collaborative, right? I mean,
Well, one of
yes.
those articles you gave me, the university professors were complaining bitterly and understandably about not being involved in the decision-making
I think
process.
the faculty ends up feeling as if it has no say in what gets taught.
Well,
Obviously, the administrators make the final decision, and they make it based on statistics. So,
Right.
And surveys. Lots of surveys these days, right? Surveys of what consumers want. I mean, this is also how the university has patterned itself after
Well, yeah.
corporations. Right? Corporations are very big on consumer surveys, trying to figure out what those desires are, right, and then to create products that match
Right.
with the consumer desires. That's kind of the way the university works too. And again, to me, it's not democratic because it doesn't give those consumers a voice. It just aggregates and tabulates and turns them into numbers that then become the basis for decisions. I take my stand. I'm not going to do another survey. I'm not going to participate. And try to get students to do another survey. They always have 10% participation rate or something like that.
Well, people are tired of it.
Yeah.
And I think suspicious of it.
Yeah.
I am. So, you want to take a walk?
Yeah, let's take it off.
Okay.